for affection, but searching isn't finding. Sit back, relax, 'cause love is blinding. Searching for affection, but searching isn't finding. Sit back and relax, 'cause love is blinding.
Hello everybody and welcome to the last reading vlog of October. So we are ending the month of October in this one. I will be probably ending this one. I mean, I won't be ending it on the 30th, but let's say that I should actually keep in mind that on the 31st of October there's probably not going to be any reading that gets done, which means that I'm actually one day further behind, or I should calculate myself as being one day further behind, because 31st of October is a work day. I will be working from home, so I will have time to read before and during lunch, so I might get some pages done, but I have a birthday party that I need to attend in the evening, and I know how these birthday parties go. I typically take the last train back from Brussels for it, so I mean, I'm not getting anything read on October 31st, so we should already count that as a day of no reading, and we'll see what that means, because I start this reading vlog with a backlog of 397 pages, and that's actually a little bit of a lie, because it supposedly started with that backlog, but I have I'm counting this as being started on the morning of the Thursday, but I'm actually filming on the Friday, and I can tell you that last night I finished the book, and then I was like, I'm actually not really feeling like reading for the rest of the evening, so I watched Sleepless in Seattle, because I'd watched You've Got Mail the day before, so obviously I needed to needed to watch You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle next, and so I didn't really complete the daily page count that I needed to, so we are some 430 or so, or 35, something like that, pages behind again. But so the first book that I finished for this vlog is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. I had some 85 pages left in this one. And so this is a horror novel in which we are following a protagonist called Cleo, who is the youngest of 3 siblings, and she inherits a house from her mother, who they had been estranged from since their early childhood. And this is a house that her mother was convinced was haunted. However, her mother was an alcoholic, and she has been told all these horror stories about their childhood by her elder siblings and her father all of her life. The book will very much be going into memory and the trickiness of dealing with past memories and the unreliability of past memories, in combination with other people's narration or other people's version of events. So Cleo has her own memories of those times, however she was very young, so they're very much vague memories. Her father has a version of events, her sisters have a version of events, and throughout this book she will get some glimpse into her mother's version of events as well. So this book very much investigates like memory and the impact of the different versions of what happens and the way in which people see things in a different way, it's very much dealing with the history of this house, the history of this family, and for that I actually think that Cleo is a deliberate choice, because the name Cleo, in case you don't know, is the name of one of the Greek muses, and it is the muse of history, so I believe that it is an intentional choice to name her Cleo. But so, I've had a great time with this book. I did like originally worry a little bit, because I thought that this was going to be like a page turner, and initially it didn't really happen, but I definitely quite quickly got really sucked into the story. Had to deal with like the jump scare of seeing my name frequently. Had to deal with the fact that Cleo is very different from who I am as a person, and that there are some weird choices such as abbreviating her name as Cly or Clee or whatever you want to pronounce that, which would never happen, I don't feel like. But yes, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this whole discussion, or this thematic of memory and the unreliability of memory, which is a thematic that I really enjoy, and I have for a long time thought, like, if I was gonna write a book, then I was gonna write a book about a character who remembers events in a certain way, but through the influence of other people's memories of it starts to change her version of events and starts to think that like something way worse happened than what she was thinking, and then like the vagueness would be for like people to be like, okay, but which version of events is real? So it definitely was very fitting for a book with a protagonist called Cleo to have thematics that run so closely to the only story that I've ever thought I wanted to tell, but I will never tell it because I'm really not a good writer or anything like that, and I don't, like, I just have the concept of a story. I don't have any, I cannot even come up with any way to put it into practice or a plot line that I would want to put on that, so it's never gonna be there, but I'm very happy to kind of associate myself with this book just through the choice of the author making the protagonist share my name. But so yes, I really enjoyed this one a whole lot, but it also kind of freaked me out because I did definitely in the evenings have to distract my brain with other stuff. I don't know whether it's just the book itself and the eerie vibes, or whether it's the combination of the eerie vibes and my name being in it, and so to some extent identifying with it, because, you know, like, I know two people who share my name. One is the person who my parents based my name on, because it's basically somebody who was in my sister's class who had this name and they really loved it, and the other is just like a designer that has my name, you know. I don't know anybody with the name Cleo, so I guess it's quite easy for me to some extent identify or latch myself onto people who have the same name, because it's just so rare for the name to appear. But so yes, that's what I did last night. As I said, ran a little bit further behind. Currently mainly reading the Stardust Thief, which is the TBR book that I'm currently, that's like the only TBR book that I'm currently reading, but I'm also listening to Madame Bovary because I also need an audiobook from time to time. However, that does not count for my TBR statistics in terms of like the books that I set out to read at the beginning of the month. But so yeah, for the weekend we'll probably not really make progress in that, except like maybe for when I'm cooking. But so yes, I do think that I want to start another book at this point in time, just so I can keep on mixing the Stardust Thief with another book. And that's where we get to some choices that we have to make, because there are 3 books left. The fact that there are 3 books left, this is going to be a vlog of 1 week. You are just going to laugh when you see one of these, because what I have left is, first of all, The Impusium by Olga Tokarczuk. This is another horror book. This is coming in at like around 320 pages. Then we have Those Above by Daniel Polansky, fantasy book, just under 400 pages, a reread for me, first book in a series, but I will say that even though this is short for a fantasy, this one was really kind of dense, and I remember kind of really needing to take my time with this one the first time I read it. And then The Will of the Many by James Islington, coming in at a mere 630 pages. So you can see that this is a over 1,400 page TBR still. Over 1,500 if we count the pages I still need to read in The Stardust Thief. So some choices need to be made. Something is gotta give. This is not gonna give. Okay, I'm rereading this one. The new book comes out on the 11th. In principle, I would have time therefore in November, but the new book for the Silver Blood Promise is coming out on the 7th of November, so I will be reading that one from that time on. So I just have the first week of November to potentially read The Will of the Many, so it would be doable, but I do definitely think that I want to get this one done in this week still, so that I can film my recap video for it still in time before the release of the new book, which means it's gonna be one or the other 2 that has to give. At this point in time, I think the thing that is going to give is The Impusium, just because The Impusium is the only thing that doesn't impact my November plans. For November, I plan to read the sequel to Those Above, the sequel to The Will of the Many, and so if I don't read Those Above in October, it just means that I have to read it in November, and that maybe I won't get to Those Below in November, I'll only get to it in December, which is kind of the cutoff time, because this is the only book from 2024 that I'm still carrying over into 2025, so I want to finish it before the 25th of December. I don't think that that is an issue, but still my brain is kind of like, the smartest one to fall off of these ones is The Impusium, and I also kind of think that The Impusium is going to be the most slow read of these three, so I think that for that reason as well, it probably is the smartest thing to fall off. So at this point in time, I'm thinking the Imposium falls off, which would mean 320 whatever less pages left to go. But as you can do math, you can probably see that if I am currently 430 pages behind and that book is 320 whatever, then we are still behind, especially considering that I already have to subtract a day from the end of October. So yeah, we still definitely need to hustle in order to get this done. It is not the end of the world if one of these is not finished at the end of October and carries over into November. But still, ideally, I would love to be able to get to these two and the Stardust Thief still throughout this week. Let's see if it is at all possible. I need to talk to you guys because I've had a very annoying thing happen. Last night, I got through 108 pages in The Will of the Many. I was going through it so quickly, but that was because I started by listening to like the preview on Audible for the audiobook, because I was like, oh, I am already struggling with the first few pages to kind of keep my brain focused on all these terminology that I need to relearn. And then I thought like, you know what, let me just like listen to the preview to kind of get into it. But the preview is just like 5 minutes or so, the audiobook, so it's just like 2 pages or something. So and then I was just like, I really want to go through this one with the audiobook because I think that that will really help me out here in getting the pages down. So I looked up whether it was on Everent, and then I started a free trial for Everent in order to be able to listen to it. So I listened to 2 hours of The Will of the Many, in which I got through 90 pages of the book, and then I had kind of said to myself, okay, at 8 o'clock I'm going to stop, I'm going to watch A House of Dynamite, which I did. And yeah, unfortunately, when I got back to the book, it was no longer there. It was unavailable all of a sudden on not Storygraph, it was never on there, unfortunately. It's on Storytel, it was never there. Because it was all of a sudden unavailable on Everent. I'd listened to 2 hours of it and all of a sudden it said unavailable. So I'm quite annoyed with that, because that means I had to eyeball read for the rest that evening, which was fine. I just had 2 more chapters to go through, so I just had like some 18 pages to go through at that point in time, that's fine. But for today, for example, it just annoys me because I have to do cooking twice a day, for example, for which I could use that time to listen to the audiobook, and I'm like, yeah, I only have the audiobook for Madame Bovary, which will not add to my page count at all. I've already spent so much time today trying to recap the section that I listened to yesterday, and actually only recapped the first 70 pages so far, so I still need to go through some 40 pages or so before I can continue on with reading. So it'll be like, I don't know, 3 o'clock or so, I feel like, before I can finally pick up a book and start reading again. And I was kind of hoping to catch up today, so I'd kind of set myself some elaborate goals, and now I'm thinking that those are definitely not going to happen. But yeah, thanks Everent for nothing. And then even like, because and then I asked like ChatGPT if I had access through somewhere else, and then they were like, yeah, I could get it through Kobo or through like bol.com, but that was a total lie. Kobo does not have the audiobook, bol.com does not have the audiobook, so the only way to get the audiobook is to use my credit on Audible, and I am just, for some reason, really hesitant to do so. I really don't want to be spending my credit on a book that I already own, even though I've been doing that for the majority of my credits for the past year. They're almost always gone to books that I actually already own, thus me spending twice the amount on the book. But yeah, we'll see. I'll probably cave, I'll probably use my credit for it, but yeah, we'll try to get a little bit further today physically and see what I say. I do enjoy the fact that when I'm listening to it, I can also like play a little bit of a game on my phone at the same time, cook, get other stuff done at the same time. But yeah, we'll see. I'll give eyeball reading a little bit of a go today, and then we'll try again for the audiobook if necessary. But so I watched House of Dynamite yesterday, which is really interesting. Like, I think in like the quarter of an hour before I was going to start it, I kind of shared on my stories that I was going to start it at 8 o'clock. And my mother diagonally read that message, and she was like, "So you saw the House with Dynamite? What did you think of it? Because you know, I stopped watching it, but your dad watched it, and he wants to know what you think of it." And I was like, "I'm going to them, like, the day after tomorrow. Like, why can they not just wait for me and talk about it then?" But then when I finished A House of Dynamite, I was like, I understand why he wanted my opinion straight away, because that ending. So I really wanted to watch A House of Dynamite. I do not watch movies on streaming that quickly unless I'm really interested, because basically my issue with streaming is typically that I just like cannot. My issue with streaming is typically that I just cannot like commit to a movie. I am like, I want to watch something but I don't know what, blah 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 blah. And I might be like, oh, this sounds interesting, this new thing that is there. I'll put it on my list, and then when it's time to watch something, I go through my list and I almost never pick anything from the list. I just rewatch something. And so for me to watch a movie on streaming, the moment it releases, for me to watch a new movie in any case is already a little bit of something of a hurdle. And so I was like, it's a new Catherine Bigelow, I need to watch it. So I set my reminder for it, and I made these plans like, it's coming out on a Friday, ideal. I'll order some pizza, I'll get to enjoy it like after having done some reading. And so I really loved my Friday nights, and I really wanted to watch this one because Catherine Bigelow is the director who is responsible for The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, two movies that I really enjoyed, and two movies that really know how to rack up the tension. And this is no different in A House of Dynamite. So A House of Dynamite is about a missile that is launched towards the US, and nobody knows where it's coming from. Nobody is claiming responsibility for the launch. Nobody knows who has potentially launched it, and they have under 20 minutes before impact. Under 20 minutes to decide on what to do, to decide on whether to retaliate. This story is told through three different loops. You start off with, let's say, focusing on 2 or 3 characters maybe. The first time around you go through the events up until like close to the explosion, and then you go back and you do the same with another few perspectives, and so on and so forth. So we go through 3 loops with it. And the ending is surprising. That's all that I'm going to say. But I thought that was really interesting. But the tension was definitely at a high point. When I finished this movie, I felt like I'd had like 10 coffees and I didn't have anything to bring the adrenaline back down. You know, I felt like I'd just been in like a fighter jet, and like I needed to get rid of the adrenaline somehow, and I didn't get rid of it at all. So yeah, in the end, I did watch a little bit of like a reaction to something cozy, I think. I don't actually fully remember what I did, but I definitely tried to watch something cozy or something like that to just like get my mindset back into a different atmosphere. And then I finished the final 2 chapters I needed to read yesterday in the middle of the many. And so for today, all that I've really done is wrote a bit of that recap video, and then I've also spent some time on editing the vlog from last week, for which I need to import the final clip now so that I can finish that video and have it exported so that it can be imported in time. But yeah, that means that it is 1 o'clock now exactly on the dot, and I have yet to read a page. I still need to finish that edit, I still need to finish the recap, and only then, and I need to cook, and only then will I be able to start reading. So those 200 pages that are on my schedule for today, I don't really know whether they're possible. Hello guys. It is Thursday the 30th. It is the final day that I have to read, and I can tell you we are not making it by a long shot, because earlier this week I finally caved and I finally was like, you know what, let me remove the Imposium from my stats, because, you know, let me just like finally see what is actually still achievable. And then I was about like 150 pages behind or so, and I could actually, if I really wanted to, push further and make sure that I got like less far behind at that point in time. But I was just really struggling a little bit. I'm struggling a little bit with those above. I don't know necessarily that it is the book. I do definitely feel like I remember this book being dense and slow, especially at the beginning. And as I said, it pays out towards the end, but we're going through that beginning section at the moment. And so I was just feeling like I was, like if I read it too late at night, I was just like kind of falling asleep to it. And I don't know whether it's just that or whether I was just really super tired, because my stats on my watch are also very much indicating that my sleep has been really bad the last few days. But so yes, I was not having a lot of energy left, and I think I felt like I managed to catch up a little bit further that day, but like the next day I was basically just like barely putting in the effort, I feel like. And yesterday I definitely didn't put in the effort. I didn't read a single page that works towards this goal. I read in Madame Bovary on the way to work and back, but that is it. So tonight I will probably read a little bit in one of these books, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough to finish one of the two others ones, and or to like really make a severe dent in one of them, neither. But I have finished the book. I have finished The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. I did really enjoy my reread in the end, but I do feel like I have enjoyed my reread to a lesser degree than my memory of how much I enjoyed this book. So, and I don't know whether that is just like, because I feel like no reading experience is an island, you know, like that you don't read anything in isolation. You read things in relation to the other books that you're reading at that same point in time or around that point in time. You read stuff in relation to things you've read before. And so, and then when it comes to a reread, you also read it in relation to your first experience with the book. And it isn't that, like, objectively speaking, my experience with this book should, like, if none of those things mattered, if none of those had an impact, then every single time that you would read a book, it would have the same impacts. Another thing that has an impact on your reading is like where you are in life, but also where you are emotionally at that point in time. When, like, are you having better times, worse times? Have you, like, how much have you changed since the first time you've read a book and the next time you've read a book? And so I definitely feel like this book didn't perform as well as it performed the first time I read it, and that can be down to having read more fantasy to compare this with, having had really high expectations for this book that this book in particular didn't fully live up to, because I'm rereading multiple books at the same point in time. And so for Will of the Many and The Stardust Thief, for example, that expectation has definitely just been, not The Stardust Thief, The Silver Blood Promise, that expectation of like going into it with like super high expectation has been met, and with this one it has been met less, which can mean many things. But so this one is just one that doesn't fully live up to my memories of it, which potentially just means that my memory of it are somewhat blown up. If also they are further away from me than the memory of reading The Will of the Many and The Silver Blood Promise. And The Silver Blood Promise and The Will of the Many were books that I debated giving like my best book of the year, whereas the Stardust Thief was not that neither. It was a book that I really enjoyed a whole lot, but it's also not like my favorite book of the year that I read. So yeah, there's just a little bit of reflections about that. So I did enjoy this. What I really enjoy about The Stardust Thief is sort of like its focus on storytelling. So one of our protagonists loves stories. He's always like sneaking out of the palace to go and listen to storytelling. His mother was a big storyteller and used to tell him a ton of stories. And throughout this book we also get a few stories that are really like fully told in full, that you get to fully experience from start to beginning, and that will also kind of play into the story story itself. And so that I really enjoyed that. I like that atmosphere of having like these stories that are part of this world reproduced for us to be able to fully experience them and get to see their impact on the world around them. And then what I also really liked about this one is that it's somewhat like I didn't fully predict this one. There are things about this one that still like surprised me towards the end, and they surprised me a second time upon reread because I had really forgotten a certain elements or something that comes into play with this one, this sort of like smaller plot twist that happens towards the end that you know, is kind of foreshadowed earlier on, or that we're kind of like building towards from the beginning of the book as well. So I really enjoyed those types of elements as well, and this sort of like being played at aspect that also comes into play when it comes to this book as a whole. But so yes, I am caught up to it again, so I now remember the plot twist, the way this book leaves off, and so I can go into book 2 within the month of November. But see, that means that in the month of November we're going to have to start by finishing off some rereads before I'll be able to go into sequels. I do have the first 6 days of the month before the first sequel kind of comes in, so before the Blackfire Blade comes in. So in that first week, I was originally thinking that that first week was gonna be mainly about reading something, maybe one of the other sequels, or just like something easy and standalone. But now I think that it will be focused on making sure that the Will of the Many and the Those Above is like rounded off. I kind of hope to still round off the Will of the Many within this weekend, but that would also mean the recap needs to be up to point, and I am somewhat struggling with recapping it because it's just so much effort. So much happens in this book and it's just a pain to recap, I will admit to that. But so yes, this was it for this video. I don't even remember if this is just like an intro and an outro and maybe a few videos of my cat, but if it is, my apologies. But it's then, in that case, it's a little bit of a shorter one to compensate for some of the larger ones that have also happened throughout this month. So I'm very much looking forward to diving into a new reading month. I'm actually really looking forward to also having a little bit more of a mellow night tonight, the way that I had last night. So, you know, I started this month saying that I would not be able to keep up the pace that was the month of October. I have surpassed the amount of pages for the month of October, but definitely when it comes to like the keeping track of the pages every single day and keeping track of that, that definitely I am now really worn out by, and that will not be my strategy for the month of November. I will not be keeping track of the pages. I will not use that strategy. So that will probably mean that I am going to be falling off of the needed pace very early on, but I will also not be keeping track of what the needed pace is and how well I'm doing when it comes to that in the month of November. And that is something that I'm actually really looking forward to. It worked to keep me on track. It worked to get a ton of pages done, but it's just not worth it for me, because yes, I still enjoyed my time with these books, but I also don't want to have reading take over so much of my life, which I definitely felt was kind of naturally happening when I was really tracking the pages, because there would have definitely been the evenings if I weren't doing so, in which I would have been like, yeah, you know what, tonight I just want to watch this movie or watch that, and where now my conscientious side was like, yeah, but let's maybe try and get like some 30 pages further in first before we do so, because otherwise we won't get enough pages done, and then if those 30 pages weren't going fast enough, then it would be like, let me just make sure that I read a little bit further, because I don't think I have the time to watch this thing right now. So that we're getting rid of again in November. It was fine for 2 months, but we're getting rid of that attitude again. But so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you guys for the next one. Bye!